Hi, my name is Rah-Khem, and I'd like to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion as they relate to leadership. And this is a continuation of our conversations in regards to best in class leadership. Diversity, equity, and inclusion have always been components of leadership. In order to appropriately apply these components, people leaders have to strengthen understanding of what we are basing our decisions and behaviors upon by being self-critical, creating friction of thought. We must grapple with subjects we've continued to keep at arm's length for far too long, subjects that make us uncomfortable due to the lack of leadership. Avoidance doesn't resolve issues, concise actions will. If an organization truly claims to be actively working to be its best self, leaders no longer can ignore processes and practices that aren't producing equitable outcomes for similarly circumstanced people within their organizational population. That's why being openly self-critical and data as to where we stand, as well as what we are going to change about our policies, procedures, and practices to level the landscape are so important. Complicit unconscious bias. One step towards being our best self as an employer, acknowledging we are all complicit in unconscious bias. Many people leaders will claim not to be biased at all, which is a fallacy at best and an outright lie in worst case scenarios. Unconscious bias creeps into how we view people without knowing them, weighing, judging, categorizing, and assuming potential or limitations without relevant supporting facts. So, what is unconscious biases? These are quick baseline decisions which impact how we see people and are influenced by false social constructs that affect claimed objective observation. Biases come from an array of source information, when critically analyzed, aren't factually supported. We aren't cognizant its influence on our decision making and behaviors. Unconscious biases can be in direct opposition to our espoused belief, and in some cases, in direct opposition to our own experiences. People leaders tend to think their decisions and behaviors are not somehow influenced by unconscious bias, especially not in the same way we view discrimination against specific groups of people. However, there's a vast difference between conscious biases or discriminating against others as compared to unconscious bias. The challenge? More is required than saying I'm not biased or I don't discriminate. Being anti bias and anti discriminatory are a part of an active process. Identifying and eliminating bias and discriminatory decisions and behaviors by challenging and changing our system of thinking. Then moving to critically challenge core aspects of our organization's policies and practices as to how they impact the people working within them. That means asking 5 whys the same way we do when we fall short in operational performance. I'm not biased, nor do I discriminate, are just forward-facing words of deflection and semantics, especially when not supported by our actions and demographic data. Being anti-bias and anti-discriminatory means acting to bring about real change. That means jumping into the complex topics and areas of discussion we aren't comfortable with and dissecting them by asking more of ourselves and those we work with to do better. People leader exercise. As mentioned earlier, many people leaders insist they are not biased, and avoidance is not the answer. If we really want to lessen the effects of bias, we cannot continue to avoid talking about it. or not acting to change. We too have to deal with it head on, put in the work, and get past it. Now, I realize there are a lot of people leaders on the fence in recognizing and believing they act on unconscious bias. So, as an exercise for those that believe they aren't biased in their thinking, decisions and behaviors, I'm going to list a few career roles on the next slide. I would like for each of you to quickly picture these roles and the image of the person or persons that perform these day-to-day roles in your mind. Again, just quickly think on the role. Jot down a short description of what the person looks like, age range, build, race, etc. All right, here's the exercise. 1. A rural farmer. 2. A police officer. 3. A medical doctor. 4. A basketball player. 5. A drug dealer. 6. A CEO. 7. A NASCAR driver. Now, I would like for you to review your list description. Be critical about the descriptions you jotted down for each role. Think about the race you quickly identified, gender, age range, and even body shape with each role. Ask yourself, regardless of answers you've written down, are those the only racial makeups, gender, age range that can occupy those roles in real life? And if you can honestly say, no, I came up with a really blended group, you're an exception to the rule. But if you identified a role that only one race, one gender, one age, or body type can actually be qualified, please reach out to share it with me. I would love to learn about such roles that exist where only one race, one gender, one age group, and one body type can actually perform in the real world. Otherwise, it's time to recognize that first flash image is unconscious bias. And without consciously countering those assumptions with critical thinking and information, we all are complicit in driving biased and discriminatory decisions and behaviors. But there is hope. Organizations can be self-critical using 6 questions within a juncture of the 5 whys. When we identify biases or inequitable applications of processes, policies, and practices, we must be positively critical in our thinking. Are we getting to root causes? So here are 6 questions that you can utilize for each of the 5 whys. Have we investigated alternate causes to contrast leading reasons presented? Let's challenge the theory. 2, do we really understand timelines? 3, can we accurately describe exact factors behind outcomes? 4, are we looking upstream at the skip level and downstream direct manager for better action that can be put forward? 5, are we considering the risk of inadequate investment in leaders' growth and development, the transfer out rate, attrition, potential legal exposure? 6, are we creating a single point fix for a systemic issue or misapplication as it relates to hiring and developing best-in-class leaders? Ask these questions for each one of the whys, and I bet you'll unravel some of the complexity within each component so you can better understand. But that means after you better understand, it's time to start developing action plans. Now, for each individual manager to break through the vacuum. Here are 13 steps for you to work through. 1. Step out comfort zones. Get to know people on your direct team as well as support partners and pay close attention to their words and ideas. 2. Listen to terms used and language someone uses to describe their own identity. Be kind. Ask for clarification when you don't understand. 3. Acknowledge religious and cultural practices of others. It's not about agreement, it's about inclusion and support. 4. Encourage participation from everyone on the team. Don't risk foregoing ideas and innovations for group cohesion. 5. When someone isn't participating, take notice and think on the side to understand what may be needed to encourage them to contribute. Let's keep breaking that vacuum. 6. Acknowledge people's expertise and skill. Suggest them for projects, stretch roles, or opportunities that will allow them to utilize their talents. And celebrate team members' contributions. 7. Amplify their voice. Acknowledge someone else's ideas and story, leveraging accolades and conference calls, emails as platform to attribute appropriate credit. 8. Collaborate on projects, initiatives, and report outs, inviting others to shine with you. 9. Provide regular and quality formal and informal feedback to help others grow. 10. Establish ahead of time what behaviors and skills demonstrate proficiency and leadership in a role. Be clear about expectations and the deliverables. 11. Provide both positive feedback and constructive criticism. People can't grow and develop if they aren't given insights on how to push to the next level. 12. Provide subtle feedback. Respectful and thoughtful tips in a supporting manner are powerful. 13. Be openly self-critical and use the 6 questions at each juncture of the 5 whys when you're really trying to investigate and understand whether or not bias could be influencing outcomes. Again, my name is Shabazz Rah-Khem. This was just a short conversation on diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to true leadership. Thank you.